I pray you help us through this conference. I pray you help us understand. I pray, and as we are going, you provide for us journey mercies. In Jesus' name I pray.
Thank you so much, James Park. It's exciting to see young men here with us today, isn't it? You may have your seats. Good morning again. Good morning. Are we excited to be at the very first Women at Sports Conference? Are we excited to be here? That deserves a round of applause. Let's just clap here. It's a very first, the first of many. My name is Susan Bodi, and I shall be co-emceeing with Rosette. She introduced herself earlier. Yeah, like she had said, I'm going to ask her to come and just run through the program as we try to redeem 30 minutes.
Okay, quickly. We've already had our prayer, so we are not going to go through that. Oh, do I have to introduce myself again? My name is Sison Rosette Mayer, and I'm part of everything. I'm co-MC with Susan. To go through this day, we've prepared something I call a menu. And I'm just hoping by the time everybody leaves, because it's a buffet, somebody would have picked something. We are going to have welcome address from Miss Mavita Ali, and then thereafter we are going to go already into the gist of why we are here. We are going to go into that morning session is going to have first, before we go into the panels and everything, we are going to have keynote speech from our guest of honor. And then after that, we are going to go into panel session. Unlike where most meetings, they say panel sessions are going to be in different places, we are all going to stay seated here, and we are going to have our panel here. So we are going to hear whatever they are going to discuss. And the topic is there, status quo, leadership and participation of women in sports. Thereafter, we are going to have a couple of minutes. It's going to depend, maybe 10, 15, where we are going to have questions and answers. This is now back to us. It's going to be a plenary session. Then after that, we are going to go for our tea break, which is going to be approximately 20 minutes. Kindly for us, for this to work, we'll need everybody to manage time so that we'll be able to continue with our program. So after break, we are going to go into breakaway sessions. Now this is how it's going to work. We have 3 rooms where, if you see session 1, 2, 3, each session is going to be in a different room. Kindly look and see which session would be of interest to you, or something that you've never had, or something you'd like to learn from something. And we are going to say session 1 is in this room, session 2 is in the other room, and then you go to whichever respective room you need to go to. Most important, when these sessions have finished, they are going to have approximately 30 also means 30, 35. We are all going to gather here so that whatever has happened in those, the proceedings in those rooms are going to be shared in a plenary session. So after that, after the sharing again, we go back to other sessions that are going to be, that is from 11:55, possibly around that time it could be past slightly after midday, to go for session 2, and kindly you do the same. You do the same, you check out which session could be very interesting, which session do you think you would like to contribute to, and then you go to those different sessions. There are going to be, again, 3 rooms where you can go. Just before we go for our lunch break, we are going to come back here and give 5 minutes to the sessions that would have gone in the different rooms to give us a feedback. What did they say about those topics that are there? After that, we believe we wanted to have our lunch starting from 12:50, but now I'm already redeeming part of the lunch time. So let me say 1 to 2, we'll go for our lunch. Exactly at 2 o'clock, we come back, and then we'll be able to continue with other sessions. Now, the other sessions are also going to follow the same way. So we would have a session that is going to take us through, again, the 3 of them in the other rooms. Same procedure, they come back. And then after that, we go into a plenary session where they present to us. Why are they doing this? At the end of the day, we want to make sure that we capture the, whatever solutions, whatever recommendations, whatever is going to happen in there, such that at the end of the day, when we get where we are talking about conference declaration, have you seen where it is? That's around 4:30. We'll be able to make sure we consolidate whatever has come from the different groups, and then we channel our way forward. Around 5:15, 5:25, that's when we'll have our closing remarks, and thereafter, we believe before you leave, kindly would like us to network, so we'll have something where we are having our tea, coffees, and we network. Is everybody on board with this? We are okay? Thank you so much. I want to hand over to you, Susan.
Awesome. That's a full program. I hope you understood few as she was wrapping through the program. Yeah? Okay, so fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be exciting. I want to encourage us to ask as many questions concerning women. Ask. Yeah, this is a place where we are exchanging ideas. This is our think tank, yeah? So without further ado, I'm going to invite a welcome address from the project coordinator of this conference. Let's put our hands together for Miss Mavita Ali.
Ladies and gentlemen, our chief guest, Mr. Onyik John Bosco, our distinguished and most honored guest, on behalf of my team, I would like to welcome you to the first Women in Sports Conference in Uganda under the theme 360 Degrees View on Sports and Women. Before we go any further, I would like to introduce our team. They're moving around, they're quite busy right now, but I'd like to introduce the team that has worked tirelessly to make sure this is a success. So team, if you're around, if I call your name, please come and stand here briefly so that you recognize. Thank you. We'd like to introduce first Bodi Susan. She's the MC and she's the one who she's the one who started this whole campaign to make sure this starts here today. So Bodi Susan, she's a lecturer with the University of Gulu University. She's a communications lecturer. And we'd like to introduce Penina Kambege. She's a host. She's so many things. She has a whole CV of list. She's larger than life. Thank you, Penina. I would like to introduce Rosette Meyer. She's a co-MC today. She's the founder of A1 Challenge. I'd like to introduce our moderator, Asha Komgisha. She's an African sports journalist with BBC, with Supersport, with FIFA. I'd like to be her when I grow up. Thank you, Asha. I'd like to introduce Regina Lunyolo. She's the Women in Sport Connect team leader, and she's a partner as well here. This event is going to be live streamed due to her company partnership. Thank you, Regina. I'd like to introduce the team of young girls from Makerere University who are here today, and the other universities who are making sure this happens. They are volunteering. They're doing the registration. I'm not sure if they can come up here now. We have Bridget. Bridget, please come. Bridget is the first chairperson for the Games Union at Makerere University. She's the first ever, I think that she needs a big applause for that. She's the first, let me say it again. Bridget Omtoni is the first lady chairperson of the Games Union. She's the first, so she needs a big round of applause. So her office is making sure that this is happening very well. And we have Letitia, please come forward. Letitia is also helping. We have Aliyah. Aliyah, please stand up. Aliyah is here, she's running the microphone. Letitia is coming. Most of them are basketballers and swimmers and rugby people and all sorts of things. And we have at the back, they're registering and they can't come here. We have Namirimu Angela. She's a lawyer with Score Beyond. And Angela, please wave. We have Rita Aliguma. She's at the back. Rita, please come. Rita, please come. Rita is with UBC and she's the former vice president of Uganda Sports Press Association. So these are the people who made this a success. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So in Islam, we are told that when we are grateful, when we are grateful to God, He will always provide us from where we cannot even fathom. So this is an example of this conference, that we're able to come together at such short notice and make sure that this happens. This is a great achievement, and we'd like to thank everyone who's here today that has made this a success. Thank you very much. This conference today is special not because it's the first one, but it's special because mostly it holds a promise for the young girls, for the young girl athlete, who will be sure to receive guidance from every role model who's seated here today. So you're playing a part in the life of the young girl athlete who's going to be, in the future, we're going to make sure she has such things all the time ready for her. She has guidance, she has somebody to hold her hand, and she has a greater sports journey and career ahead of her. So that's why this conference is very special. Our purpose today here is to discover each other, we have to share experiences, and to pledge commitment to find solutions that are relevant and valuable to us. So while we seek grown home solutions, while we go to the panelists, while we have the breakaway sessions, while we look for the homegrown solutions, we must remember our global reach. So the idea of this conference was birthed from Botswana when we went in May last year, 2018, when we had the International World Conference on Women in Sport in 2018. So the secretariat was at Botswana, and as they were closing up, they had a legacy that they came up with. It was the Big Five strategic policy, and the things that they pledged to commit to make sure that we were able to reach our goals were namely media, accountability, representation, research to practice, and communication. So this conference is an example of extending our global reach. So we commit as Uganda to look ahead to align ourselves to the Big Five. So these are some of the topics that we are going to cover while we're here, and then we pledge to commit to the Big Five of the IWG. With those few words, I'd like to welcome you all, and we look forward to a great deliberation, and we look forward to find solutions that are relevant to us, that are valuable to us, and we hope that we all take a very active role in changing the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You've heard from our mama. So before she runs away, I'm going to ask that she introduces the next speaker. The shoes are too big for me to fit. She told me to introduce him.
I'd like to introduce our chief guest, Mr. Onik John Bosco. He's the chairperson of the Games Union. Chairperson of, my apologies, chairperson of the National Council of Sports. You're welcome, sir. Round of applause, round of applause.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson of this organization, this organizing committee. I would like to start by correcting her a bit. My name is not John Bosco Onyik, but my name is Bosco Onyik. John is my father's name, and I agreed with him before he died that he takes John and I take Bosco. But all of us were John Bosco. So my father took John and I took Bosco. So my name is Bosco Onyik. Once again, I would like to thank the organizers of this conference, that is Women and Sports Conference, with a theme of 360 degrees view on women and sports. What a nice theme. When I was out there, I asked my friend Penny, and I said, why 360 degrees? She said, it can never be complete until when it is 360 degrees. And I thought that was a very good choice for this conference. I would like to thank on the other hand also all the stakeholders who have come together to make this conference a success. Indeed, sports has become a multi-billion-dollar project. Look around. One of the best paid people these days are those who are in sports. Mr. Mayweather gets $300 million US dollars a year. And there are some footballers who are getting about 200,000 pounds sterling per week. Calculate by 52 weeks and you will know how much they get in a year. Not even the best trained doctor, engineer, or other professionals can get that. But in sports, they are getting it. That's the more reason I encourage you, the women in sports, to do what you're doing. And in Uganda, we have a living testimony. Our women in sports are not doing very badly. I've seen the university sports, especially the netball team, doing very well at international level. I've seen our Uganda netball team, federation, also doing very well at world level. I've seen individuals who have succeeded in sports at international level, like in Commonwealth, in Olympics, the ladies. And we are very proud of them. I would like to appeal to all stakeholders in sports development to take this as a very serious initiative. Sports has got 4 components which are very important. Economically, sports has helped us develop. I've already told you how much money is involved in sports. Socially, sport has brought us together. Even the worst enemies in politics get together through sports. Because when we go to a game like football, you'll not say, this is NRM, this is DP, this is UPC, this is what. But when they are in the field, they play one game, one rule, one everything. And you find that even the worst of the worst will be on the same table in the name of sports. So socially, sports has also brought us together. So sports itself has brought us development. See, look around in these developed countries who are so advanced in sports, and look at their facilities. Those ones who can now host World Cup events, those ones who can host Olympic, those ones who can host Commonwealth Games, those are the effects of development I'm talking about, brought in through sports. And of course, when you're talking about sports, you cannot forget talking about the health aspect of it. I've never seen a sick athlete participating in the games. Not that they don't fall sick, but the probability that an athlete would fall sick is far much less than that one who is not actively involved in sports. So it also provides a good account of our health as athletes or as those who are involved in sports. So sports has got 4 main components of economic component, social component, development component, and the health component. All these are the benefits we get through sports. As government, we are very much committed to sports development in this country. Through our National Council of Sports, we have always extended support to most sporting federations. Even this one, this very conference you are holding today, we have supported you. That shows part of our efforts in supporting sports in any way. We don't, of course, discriminate saying this is the girls or the female or the women thing. We support sports without any barrier. But above all, we give more support to the women activities. I want to make this one very clear. That's why when we held the university sports last time, government came in Andy and supported the effort of the organizers of that game. And of course, the ladies' side emerged best. Our national netball team qualified for the Netball World Cup in Liverpool this year. Again, government has come in to support them and see them through in their struggle to compete with others. We are going to meet their budget 100%. Again, those are the support we give to women initiatives in sports development. Of course, there are individuals like the Injikurus of the Injikurus. Injikuru is one of those ladies who excelled at international level. The Stella Sesang, the Commonwealth gold medal winner of yesterday, and of course, a host of others. I'm mentioning these just to remind you that as government, we are doing all it takes to see you through. Above all, how do we see a girl child going through sports? I'm being told that this is the first time this conference is being held here in Uganda. I wish it could be held yearly. We would be very happy to welcome you as a country, and of course, as the body that regulates sports in this country. My main function this morning was a very simple one, to come and declare this function open, but I thought I should first highlight some of the few activities and achievements made as a country or as a government. Of course, I wanted to leave this place knowing that the government of Uganda is committed to sports development in this country. We don't have a very big budget for sports. We only have 17 billion shillings, but these 17 billion shillings should cater for 48 different federations, leave alone some other sports activities that come within the year, like the All Africa Games, like the World Cup of the netball that they're going for, Africa Cup of Nations. All those activities also do come aside, but we have to manage them within the small budget that we have. Dear ladies, of course this is the Women and Sports Conference, but I've also seen men around, so I don't know whether men are also participants or they are facilitators. Dear ladies, with this said, it is now my humble pleasure to declare this conference opened.
Thank you so much. Another round of applause as he takes his seat. It's exciting that there are men in this place, isn't it? Yes, it just is a statement that men are concerned about the women agenda, yeah? He said there's 17 billion shillings for sports. I'm excited about what's going to happen to women in sports. Yes, our president, thank you very much for coming. Thank you for supporting us in word, but even in deed, with your presence and with resources, yes? Okay, so since we are redeeming time, I'm just going to go right into the next thing on our program. It's a keynote speech. Did we introduce ourselves to our neighbors? There are many dignitaries here, but we're all dignitaries. You might be sitting next to your next sponsor. Just take a minute to say, hi, my name is so-and-so. You can add a title, put a title. Hi. my name. I'm sure we're not strangers anymore, are we? We're not strangers anymore. Okay, now the next person I'm going to invite, speaker, our keynote speaker, she's called Dr. Sarah Sally. She's an associate professor in gender and studies. She has a PhD, or I look up to her. When I grow up, I want to be her. She has a PhD in international health and development. She teaches gender and politics, gender and institutions and social transformation. I believe this is at Makerere University. Yes, and she's not alien to the sport world. She used to do long distance running. So she understands, she relates with you and me. Let's just put our hands together right now and invite Dr. Sally. Yes, it's right there. As she comes, I'm just going to announce that we are streaming live. Aliyah is going to put up a link so you can share. Yeah? The Women and Sports Conference is happening, people.
Yes, thank you very much. Sorry, I forgot your name. For those brief remarks. As everyone else who is here, I would like to say I'm very privileged to be here. It's a great day, and it's always a great opportunity to associate with Penina and her girls. And today I was told they're also boys. Yeah, so it's very impressive to be speaking here at the sports fraternity. The one who introduced me told you that I used to do long distance running. Indeed, I did that. When I came to campus, we used to have these things where you do roadworks very early in the morning. Then I don't know where they disappeared. And I don't know why I stopped doing sports. But maybe today we shall understand. But I'm a very good cheerleader. And I love cheering netball. Recently we did a lot of work around netball. So I'm here to speak about gender and sports, but mainly looking at the participation bit of, not participation per se, but leadership participation. It's true, you've all read that there are not so many women in sports leadership. It is also true that for a long time we have lamented about the lack of women in sports per se. But that figure is beginning to change. There are so many women engaged in sports today. Just being in this room is testimony to that. The biggest challenge that remains is women in sports leadership, and I will ask the lady to present. That is something you can download off the net. It is freely available. But I thought we could use some of those figures to illustrate what I want to say. Basically, if you Google any literature on gender and sports leadership, which I had to do as I was preparing, since I'm no expert in sports, I'm just an expert in gender, all the articles seem to communicate one thing. Whereas the world has made great strides in women occupying positions of leadership, whether in business corporations or political leadership, not much is occurring in the area of sports. So you can just scroll down. From there you can see, that's I think about the UN. There are only 3 women in the executive boards, 11 women against 193, 95 males. You go down, there are 14% women in decision-making positions, and only 5 women are presidents in the national sports federations of the EU. Then the lower one is even more interesting. We shall just stop there. Look at the percentage of women in different positions in continental federations of Olympic sports in Europe. You can see the more you go at the top, the less you have of females there. And yet this is supposed to be the world. This is supposed to be the world where we call that noise. So this is supposed to be the world which is more advanced than some of us. We keep looking to the West as a more advanced place in terms of gender, in terms of women and men, equality, in terms of so many other things. But you can see they are struggling. We don't have many of the figures from the South, but I also looked up more figures which are global in terms of women chairs, CEOs, and directors of sports companies. And this one was mapping trends and change from 2012 2016. We don't yet have the figures for 2018. The women chairs in 2012 were 7%. In 2016, they were also 7%. Women CEOs of sports companies were 8% in 2012. In 2016, they were 19%. So at least there has been a change of 11%. The directors were 12% in 2012, and in 2016, they are 16%, some small increment. So what does that mean? The change is not occurring as fast as we want it to change. And yet the number of women entering sports is higher. Of course, we are interested in women participating in sports. And it's very important that they take charge of the games, given that this is one of the oldest things in humanity. If you are to go back to the Athenian and Greek things, sports has been more developed in relation to human society than any other field we talk about, whether you want to talk about trade and everything. Sports is older than anything. So some of the ways they have tried to mitigate that is we have so many international resolutions around sports. You have the UN resolution 58.5 of 2008, which talks about promoting sports as a key factor to education, to health, to development, to peace. You have the SDGs, you have 3, which talks about promoting health and well-being and the centrality of sports to that. You have the SDG 4, which talks about ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education and promotion of lifelong learning in relation, and sports is highlighted as a key factor there. You talk about resolution 5, SDG number 5, which is talking about ensuring gender equality for all. And that's where the concerns, again, in women in leadership come in, especially considering that 20% positions of leadership in sports is held by women. And the key factor is why do we have so few women in leadership? I know we are talking global, but you can also talk from the local context where you are. It was nice to see Omotoni being introduced as the first chairperson of the Games Union in Makerere, okay? So we can try to relate this even at the lowest level. There are so many academic publications from South Africa, but the most important thing is to learn there are so many issues. Before we get to that, there are so many issues which have affected women's underrepresentation of sports. And these issues cut across women's participation in sports as a whole. First and foremost, from the gender perspective, you have the fact that although we've talked about women catching up in the participation of sports, they are still few in number. And why are they few? One of the key things most writers highlight is negative stereotypes about women in sports. At a younger level, women and males are encouraged to participate in sports. But as we grow older, women who participate in sports are seen more as masculine and as manly, and that makes some of us drop off, although we could have been sporty in our upbringing. The other thing you talk about is the lack, you have the stereotyping of women in sports as masculine, but also you have the stereotyping of sports general as masculine entities, to the extent that it becomes a barrier to so many women participating. It's true if you looked down and saw the women who are increasing in participation, they are in the sports which are classified as female sports, the netballs. And of course, you also have ones which are gender neutral, volleyball, basketball, which reward height. So if you're short like me, she would beat me at joining the basketball teams. But other than that, most of the games we have that are highly prioritized in the world, football, tennis, and all these kinds, you tend to have more males there. So if we are to do something about it, can we change the stereotyping of sports generally as male entities? There's the whole aspect of perceiving sports as a waste of time when people are growing up. And especially if you come to a country like Uganda, where we are pushing academics at the extent of everything. When we were younger, there was physical education. The current education plans talk a lot about physical education as being central to the holistic education of a child. But how much has the Ministry of Education, for example, provided in terms of facilities, in terms of the curriculum, in terms of the timetabling to ensure sports is highlighted in schools, but beyond that, to ensure females get to participate in sports. Okay? So there are not too many facilities. I know the National Development Plan of Uganda in terms of sports development talks about improving facilities, providing a stadium per region, and providing equipment for schools. But when you look on ground, these are yet to be achieved because we are still waiting for funding and prioritization in that. The National Development Plan of Uganda also talks about reward systems as a way of improving sports. I know now, like in the universities, we have sports mark points to get people into universities. But can we ensure that we do that more so that people don't either have to choose between academics and sports, but you can be both an academic and a sports person. But beyond that, then we attach a gender angle to it. How can we ensure that our girls get to fare heavily in sports? One other reason our girls are lacking in sports is the whole issue of mentoring and careers. We don't seem to have so many females around who have done sports and excelled. So then the other challenge we have relates with the provision of skills, the provision of coaches in these facilities, or in the different levels people come from. Then you also have the regional disparities. Where are most of our female participants coming from? In Uganda's case, we tend to see, if this is a long distance running, we are talking about Eastern Uganda, the others, you can talk about the North. There are not so many girls from around here. I remember we did have some interviews when we won the netball sports championships, and we were wondering why Makerere University students were not in the netball championships. And the Makerere University students were quick to tell us that, you know, it's because for us we are more academic, the other people are not very academic. But also then it goes also into other aspects of concepts of beauty. And who is more concerned about their beauty vis-a-vis the others. And if you attended those games, you would also tell there were regional profiles and national profiles to who made it to the teams. And going back to who is stereotyped, which regions are stereotyped as more beautiful, which regions are more stereotyped as more feminine, and which regions have females who are classified more as masculine. The other thing you cannot rule out is the issue of reproduction. The literature on career pathways of women in sports shows that many of them tend to drop off when they begin childbearing. And yet this is the time they should sustain their participation in sports so that they get to be leaders in the different kind of fraternities they find themselves. So that's a social cultural challenge we still have to deal with. The other challenge that comes up is the nature of the organizational cultures of the sports themselves. And I touched a bit on this in terms of those that are classified as males and females, but also you can talk about the nitty-gritties of who gets to be leaders in those associations, in those sports. How are they organized? How are the trainings done? Where are the trainings conducted? And how do they participate in that? There are the issues of discrimination. What are the different aspects? The person who spoke before me talked about sports as a big player in terms of earning people some income. And right now it is a very good aspect in earning people income. So when sports becomes commercialized, are we likely to see the other vices that have affected our people's entry into the job market playing out in the sports field? And of course, there's the famous story of where the Ugandan team of swimmers that went to India a few years ago had everything else but swimmers, okay? But that is on other aspects of income. So when it comes to sports as a way of making income, in a job market which is gender stereotyped, are we likely to see women participate more or women being discriminated against? Because now, when money has to be made, we are going to prioritize men over women. And where sports leadership comes with clout, comes with a particular reward system, whether financial or social capital of nature, are we likely to see more females participate in it, or are women going to be discriminated against to give ways to males? Maybe later on as we go through the session, we would like to hear stories of the women in this room who have managed to be sports leaders, like Madame Penny Nakarenge for a long time. So you can also talk about patriarchy. You can talk about opportunities. There's a study done about women leaders in sports in Uganda. It was done by Kenyatta University, which has a very big sports department academically. And some of the things which were highlighted there is that women don't have opportunities to become leaders, in addition to not even having opportunities to become sports people. So all these things matter. But I am here as the one who is less informed of sports. I should not be the one who tells you that these are the matters, the things which matter. Because I imagine each one in this room has experienced them better. For me, I dropped off, but I think I dropped off more because of, we became campusers and became more feminine, it became less cool to do the road work every morning at 5, running around Kampala was, because people were talking about you developing muscles, and then that is going to create some other challenges. But other than that, because I don't have much time, I just wanted to introduce to you 2 frameworks, because I imagine we are not here just to look and talk about our problems in sports and what challenges we've made. We are here, and such conferences are held so that we forge a way forward, okay? And we've appreciated, like many of you have appreciated in conferences where I've been, what the problems are. So one of the frameworks I want to leave you with is one around intersectionality. If you're talking about addressing issues, it's not enough and cool anymore in the gender terrain to just talk about women versus men, but to appreciate that there are so many stratas and contours of challenge, of discrimination that render people vulnerable. So this figure is simply illustrating the different stratifiers we have to navigate so as to achieve or to reach where we want to go, okay? So normally when we talk about gender, women, we tend to talk about women and men and reduce those to biological binaries. But this figure shows that actually society is full of all those things. You are not only discriminated against because you're a woman. You may be discriminated against because you're a woman. You are also an African, for our colleagues who are coming from Southern Africa. So race becomes a matter. In Uganda, where race is not a very big problem, except maybe in motocross, you will have to navigate things like tribe. Yeah, because each time I see people winning motocross, they are light-skinned. They are either Asian or they are mixed race, and you wonder where the African kids are. But it is also a thing which comes with a lot of money. So you can be discriminated because of your gender, because of your race, because of your income, because of your education. I imagine there are girls in my village far away from here who would have participated and wanted to be in this room, but have never been anywhere near here. Probably they got married at 13 and started bearing children, so even their sports potential never came up. So what this simply tells us is that you have a person in the middle, and that person has the unique circumstances, like us. We did navigate a few things to get here this morning. But in addition to that, we have different levels of spirituality. I think our first speaker here, or moderator, told us about, introduced us a little bit, a snippet of Islam and what we should be doing there. Citizenship, are you in a country where sports are valued? Are you in a country which is very poor, that maybe sports has to be, the sponsorships have to come from donors and not from the national cake? But from there, then you have the legal systems, you have our post-colonial past, you have all those kinds of things. So as we are planning for these people, because most of us here, I think, are leaders, can you plan knowing, you don't just stop at inviting a few people to come and encouraging people to come. You may have to go an extra mile to include females who are also disabled, okay? And that means those of you who are in the sports fraternity and are playing games for able-bodied people, can we reconfigure how best to include people or to come up with games where people who are not very able-bodied have participated? I know now they are the long distance races for people who have lost limbs, but probably there could be more around that. Can we go to the next? I think my time is up. The next slide. I hope that's not the only one you have. Yes, and this is where I would like to conclude. Again, you have the individual and the individual relationships. You have the organizational and community level. The community level could be our tribes and everything. But organizational are the different sports you play. How are your sports organized? And is the organization within those sports enabling for females to participate and enabling for females to lead? Or should there be something you need to rethink there so that you change it? From there, you go to the systems and institutional level. People here have come from either sports fraternities, universities, games bodies. What are the institutional rules that govern that? Are we stuck in bureaucracy that we are skipping out the people we should be bringing in? Might there be need for affirmative action? Or is sports simply about competition and excellence that there's no room for that? Then you look at the society in which people find themselves. Are these societies and the norms and values there enabling for people to come up first as participants, but also for people to come up as leaders? Then from there, you look at the different structures, the different resources, norms, and practices. If you look at a country like South Africa, a lot of literature is written about the sports world in South Africa. The universities have powerful sports departments. There are lots of resources for sports research, sports participation, sports sponsorships, and maybe that helps the norms around femininity and being a games person and a games leader to change. And that, in effect, brings about structures. Legally, maybe there's affirmative action for sports, whatever. Then we bring this to our different countries here, where maybe we are having a different terrain. Is it because maybe since we lack race, we don't look at the different identifiers and differences we deal with, okay? But even without the binary of race, there are others like tribalism, like economic opportunities. In countries where the budget, he talked about the 17 billion or something like that. But if you break it down for the different sports fraternities, the different games, the different kids who wants to be, that is very little money, okay? So I want to end it there, but to leave that with you, so that we just stop promoting and preaching to individuals to come on board, because that's what we spend our time doing. Every time we stand up, we are preaching to women to take up leadership. We are preaching to women to take up participation in sports or to take up other things. But can we appreciate that beyond the individual, there are all these structures that the individual finds themselves in? And I hope as we are going to have the different panels and group works, we are going to have opportunity to highlight the challenges across all those concentric circles and find out what we can do about them. So that by the end of this conference, we have strategies that at least are going to take us from point A to B. So that next time you have such a conference, we are not discussing our remaining at point A. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Doctor. She's spoken wisely about the future of women and sports. Applaud her as she sits, people. Very important to note, right? That there's more to sport than just the individual. There's structures, there's culture. Some of our friends didn't play further because Hamuganda mom would say, hey, that's not for women. Women are supposed to become wives and do A, B, C, D, right? So this is what we're doing here. This is what this conference is about, breaking those barriers, yeah? So thank you again. Thank you so much. I'm just going to do a bit of housekeeping. If or when you feel the need to use the washrooms, you just go out the entrance and then take the first turn on your right and you'll find clear directions to the washroom. Sorry that they've come late. Okay, again, right into the next thing on the program because we are late. We're going to have our panel session that is going to be moderated by Asha Komugisha. I'll ask her to come up front. Miss Asha Komugisha is an African sports journalist with Super Sport and the BBC, I think. And she insists that I say she won a championship with Lady Cannons when she was much younger. So, Asha, thank you for honoring.
Thank you, Bodi. What Bodi doesn't want to tell you is that I won a national basketball title with her on the same team, by the way, playing for the Lady Cannons. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is really an honor to stand here in front of you and go through the panel session, but also to see this come to life. We've been planning this for a long time, and we're very honored to have you. Please allow me to introduce the panelists that we're going to have today. And since it's a women and sport conference, I'll introduce the gentlemen first, because the gentlemen will feel like they're an endangered species. I'll start with Dr. Malumbete Ralete from South Africa, President of the Federation of African Sports in Universities, FASU. And as someone who was mentored by FISU, the International Federation, it's an honor to have you here, Mr. Malumbete, please. Allow me to also introduce our host today, Miss Penina Kavenge, someone that mentored me almost a decade ago. She's mentored more than half of the people in this room, a woman of grace, of integrity, and someone that many look up to. She's also the sports tutor at Makerere University. She's formerly served in so many sports organizations, former Secretary General of the Uganda Olympic Committee. She's served in the Federation of Basketball in Uganda. She's served as Vice President for the World Woodball. Hey, it's so much. Well, I'll also introduce Dr. Patrick Ogwell, who is the General Secretary of the National Council of Sports. He's served in so many federations, including football, which is FUFA, basketball as well. It's an honor to have you here, Dr. Patrick Ogwell. Allow me to also introduce Miss Nomza Mahlangu, all the way from South Africa. Her CV has 4 pages. I don't know where I'll begin from. But Nomza is named after the greatest South African woman, Nomza Momadikizela Mandela. She's the Director of Sports at the University of Johannesburg. She's also a CAF General Coordinator and also a Match Commissioner. Her CV is too long, I'll also not go into that. Then I'll lastly introduce a national rugby player, Winnie Atiang. She played for Uganda at the IRB World Sevens in 2009 in Dubai. Winnie is representing the athletes on this panel. Well, I'm sure someone is out there thinking, why do we have more men than women on the panel? You're only 2, eh? No, I'm joking. Well, men are decision makers, okay? They're decision makers, they're part of this movement. If anything, they should be making many of the contributions here. So allow me to go straight into the discussion. And my first question is going to Dr. Malumbete. It looks like sports is for both men and women, but in truth, has it ever been?
Masuza mutie bonyabo na basebo Edinya diange Malumbete, Dr. Malumbete Ralete. I'm very happy to be here in Kampala in Uganda, especially at an event organized by the University of Makerere. As a young medical student some years ago, my professor Levone, who was teaching us anatomical pathology, he never stopped in any of our lectures to talk about Makerere University. So as young people, we always wanted to come to Makerere University. And when I came here in 2008, Madam Penina would know that how much excitement I had. So Makerere University and another university in Africa that I visited in December with, again, Madam Penina. It's a university in Tanzania. We call it SOMAFCO in South Africa, Solimahlangu University. It's really about the liberation struggle of our country, where a lot of our heroes are there. So when you go to institutions of this nature, you become very excited. I'm sorry I had to say that as a way of, look, I think I must also congratulate the previous presenters here and honor the leadership of the Sports Council. Having been FASO president since 2010, I have made a number of trips here as our headquarters are here, and we have seen how much you try and go out to support university sport. But we would like to see much more, especially after our women in Uganda did the work that they did to show up that they can actually challenge the rest of the country, not only in the court, because in the court they beat South Africa, but in how to can put up a championship of high caliber as you did the last time. So I really would like to congratulate you on behalf of FASU as well as on behalf of FIZU. Now, I'm a very shy person naturally, and I am no scholar on gender issues, especially women issues. I come from a young democracy, and we thought that perhaps because we were a young democracy, we were able to share and adapt to new changes, new transformation, new accessibility to women in the sport arena, both as athletes or as leaders, such that our University Sports Federation back home was founded in 1994, was it? In 1994, but by now, we have already lived under the presidency, under the presidency of our federation to 2 women as president. One of them was a president as a student, and one of them is a sports administrator like Madam Penina, who is a president. So it is possible that women can be able to. There are 2 women in this room that I have worked with. There's so much I have learned from them through the years, because leadership is not only, yes, we want people at the top echelon, but there are so many diverse areas in which you can have this participation of women. And I want to say to the organizers and to our good friends in Uganda that it is possible to have women as your leaders, not only because, look, we have done affirmative action as a concept to try and fast track people into particular spaces. But that affirmation, if let's say you get affirmed and then you simply go and sit there and not do anything, the system will easily kick you out. But we have found a lot of resilience in the type of women that have come through our ranks that have then been able to fill up the spaces. And personally, when somebody has got a passion, we legislated now in FASU the fact that as a university sports movement, you can't have an executive of people, one, that are not in university sport, people that are not young people, people that are not, that does not include women. And I'm excited that in 2010 we made history when she became the first Secretary General, and she has held on to that position and done some good work in that area. Not only because she's a woman, but as a human being who is capable. People have seen that she can provide the leadership. So I want to, the Games Union president, I met her in Dodoma. There is so much that she should use the time within which she's leading this to help more women have the belief, because many of us as men, we obviously still have the stereotypes, we still have, you know, this concept that no, I can't be led by a woman and all. But today's woman of substance, today's woman who is capable and ready to provide quality leadership, because it's not only about just being there and then, oh, I look good, I look nice. No. For me, the women that I've worked with, and I've been blessed to be surrounded by so many women in sport in my country and a little bit in the continent, it's still very difficult at the international level, where both me and Penina are serving, that the transformation there is much, much slower, as you were showing the European numbers there. So this is a painful journey that all of us must actually take and walk through and say that there is a contribution we can be able to make. And I can tell you, having been blessed with a huge, I'm sorry, when I'm seated here today, because I've just met the president again of Netball Uganda, the netball president in South Africa, may the soul of a departed husband rest in peace, it's also a product of university sport. We must be able to, as Makerere University, as Uganda University Sports Federation, as Ugandan universities, actually try to use our institutions as the driving force behind this force that will make FUFA to eventually have a woman president. Because it's not scripted anywhere that FUFA can only be run by gentlemen. As she is here with me now, as somebody who has played rugby, I want to see her going through the ranks to eventually replace him. Okay? So the bottom line from FASU's side is to say that there is a bigger role that women can play. And it's not somebody from somewhere else who come and tell you it starts with you. And starting with you, I think in football some years ago, but in my team, they used to keep me as a reserve, even if there were 7 players only, because I was so bad, right? But you know what? I had the passion for sport. I had the passion for sport, and through that, even if they didn't put me in that soccer team, I still went, and then I became an administrator. So there are so many other avenues and areas in sport that we must explore. You might be this person who just loves sport passionately. There is a contribution you can do, and eventually become a leader in this unit. So I want to wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. That was very passionate. Before I ask my second question to the next panelist, I would like to give you a small statistic. Maybe it's not small like that, but Uganda has 48 sports federations, but only 5 have female presidents. The African continent has 1 female FA president, that is football, Aisha Johansen from Sierra Leone. In basketball, Hadi Boinelo from Botswana is the only female president of a federation on the entire continent of 54 countries. To say that it's ridiculous is an understatement. Now, my next question is to Ms. Penina Kabenge, President of the Association of Uganda University Sports House. To Penina, resilience, fight, and eventual authority. What's the actual story behind a successful female sports leader?
Thank you, Asha. The story behind a successful sports leader may vary from one and another, but maybe I'll tell my story. One of it is to be successful as a women leader, you need to work probably thrice more than your male counterparts for people to trust in you and let you lead them. I've been the president of the Uganda University Sports for over 13 years and duly elected. And I think when you work hard and you show that you can do it, people will believe in you and they will let them lead you. So my appeal is, if we want to be there, we have to work, we have to go an extra mile than our male counterparts. The other is passion. Once you have the passion, then nothing can stop you from being there. Personally, I've been mentored by men. My father, my brothers, I'm from a family of 11 children, 6 boys, 5 girls, and all the time I looked upon my brothers. I used to be their goalkeeper because, as you see, we are 11. We would play around the village. We could make a full team and I was the goalkeeper and they trusted me to be number 1. So mentoring is very important. As people here today, we need to mentor our kids, we need to mentor our students, we need to mentor everybody to be there. Then role model. If you have somebody you look at, you want to be like someone, and you try to be that person. Professor Sally, in one way, she's my role model. I know she was the vice president, first vice president of the local organizing committee, and every time we were making decisions, she had to ensure that decisions were made. She even stopped some people from attending the meeting to go and make things happen. So we really need role models, and we really need to be the role models so that people can look at us. The other thing, you need to be a risk taker. I think most females shy out because they don't want to fail. They don't want to lose as leaders. I think the higher risk takers have more chances of being there, of being there, yes. Courage, you need to be empowered. And I'm happy this conference is happening today, empowering all of us. If you are not empowered, then you cannot be there. As I say, I'm telling my story, but there are other stories of successful female leaders. We've been stereotyped as people who are supposed to be in the kitchen, but in my family, it was a different thing. My brothers would wash dishes as I do what they should have been doing. I would be allowed to ride bicycles, which is rare in my culture. So family, the way the family achieves things can also help you get where you are. I think that's briefly my success story.
Thank you very much, Penina. What Penina is very humble about not saying is that her brother, Jasper Aligawesa, was a former NCS Secretary General. So yes, she comes from a sports family. And talking about the National Council of Sports, my next question goes to Dr. Patrick Ogwell. When I say doctor, I don't mean medical doctor. I mean PhD doctor. As someone who has served, like I said earlier, with FUBA, which is the Basketball Federation, and FUFA, the Football Federation, and now as a very big stakeholder with the government, this is my question to you, Dr. Patrick Ogwell. What is the stakeholders' stake in female sports?
Thank you very much, moderator. Before I answer your question, allow me to appreciate the theme of the conference, and also to appreciate the contribution of the previous speakers in this forum. I want to observe that women's participation generally in sports has a long history, which is marked by division and discrimination, but also filled with major achievements by female athletes, and also to note many advances for gender equality, and among others also empowerment, as my good friend Penny has mentioned, for both women and girls. And as you note, the many remarkable achievements are noted worldwide. And I gave an example of Ellen Madison of the United States, who in 1932 Olympics was able to win 100-meter freestyle and set a record of her own. We have seen this in Kenya, Lorupe, the first African woman to win a marathon at a global scene. Women have also taken leadership roles in many international federations, forums, and I can say the list is long for such. We have also seen that those achievements altogether come with the bottlenecks or barriers based on gender discrimination, which we must appreciate in this workshop. Women are perceived to be too weak for some sport, and particularly on endurance. Dr. Saleh mentioned something which excited me, and I want to say that actually today I would say that also women in this generation are victims of their own. Look around, most ladies prefer to be corporate. They want to be models, corporate women. They think men cannot marry a woman who is not corporate. Now this limited their chances, even participating. I would want to say that, yes, let's accept that on one end, as we appreciate the challenges, the culture, orientation, but also our social structure in the communities, as perceive women, that the sport is for for male, that the participation of women affect their reproductive health. Riding a bicycle, for example, certain cultures doesn't allow, and many others, the story is long. So, I want to applaud Mr. Baron Pierre de Coubertin, the founder of Olympics in the world, who actually leveraged, and I have to quote this. He made a statement which actually set the pace for women's participation in sport. And I want to make it in verbatim. He said, no matter how toughened a sportswoman may be, her organism is not cut out to sustain certain shocks. We have talked about stereotypes here, which has fueled gender-based discrimination in physical education and also competitive sport, respectively. I think that should be a very good preamble as I enter into my question as posed by the moderator. I want to start by saying that, yes, who is a stakeholder in women's sports? It is important to note that a stakeholder is simply an individual or organization whose attitudes and action influences the success of a sports team, sports participation in aspects that bring results. We have seen women participation in many organizations. As mentioned earlier, the moderator has just given us brief statistics of women in leadership position in national sports federations, but also at the club level, teams, in leagues, respectively, and women participation is visible. I've been asked to give what is the stakeholders' stake in female sport. And I want to say that, for me, there are 5. And I start with the government. Government plays a very key role as a stakeholder in promoting participation of women. And I want to emphasize that we are still big as government, because one, we set the policies. The policy of government must be able to be proactive to promote participation. I would say mass participation of all. And these policies are not supposed to be discriminative. The National Council of Sports Act of 1964, which many today refer to as archaic, addresses participation of women and men as with equal opportunities. The second aspect of government is investing in sports infrastructures in one way or the other to promote talents at the different levels. And that's the reason why you see our vision as a government regulator is anchored on providing enabling environment for investment in and promotion of sports in our country. And also with a mission statement that addresses aspects of maximization opportunities for all Ugandans. That means we are not discriminating. And we want to believe that we must promote both gender in terms of realizing their potential and excel in sports. We have promoted men in sports, and as mentioned, today we have about 48 federations. All these federations get support from government. But we have also addressed ourselves to the particular needs of our women participation in national in sports which are basically female bias, like netball. I can tell you today, government has prioritized netball among the top 8 sports in this country. The participation of our sea cranes for the last many years has been 100% government support. We are not current champions of Africa by accident. We are not going to the World Cup for the third series running, but because government has invested, and the president is here, can attest to this. And we're looking forward for a big run in Liverpool when we are participating in the Netball World Cup in July. I would want to say that as we support federations, we also support women's participation. But these other factors I mentioned earlier could have been a reason why we still today have a challenge on the number of women participating in the sports, which we must address also in this forum. I've mentioned about policies, but I also need to mention about infrastructures of facilities. Dr. Sally said we don't have up-to-date facilities. It is true. But government has now prioritized infrastructural development and revamping of all the major regional stadiums in our country. You are aware traditionally Uganda had 4 regions. We have stadiums in the western region, we have Kacheka, we have Buhinga in southwestern, we have special stadium in Gulu for northern, Akibwa respectively. And as we talk now, there are already commitments of government in policy to ensuring that we have. But as you are aware, any government in this world prioritizes what they want in a particular sector. To date, we have ambitious program of completing the National Eye Attitude Center in Tereriet, where all the investment of government, and if it's completed, I think it would be the best in Africa, if not in the whole world, if completed. We are already 70% on that. That is about infrastructure. Of course, our cardinal role, among others, is nurturing talents through the national sports associations. And in this case, I want to say that those programs also come along with building capacity for participation of women in the sports. Dr. Sade mentioned about rewards. Today, we don't discriminate as government. After the Commonwealth Games, His Excellency the President hosted the team, and they were recognized. But also came with cash prizes. I remember my office released over 100 million to the 6 medalists, and they got the money. Government promised to build houses for the gold medalists, which has been done before, and we shall continue to do. So that means in our policies, we address also the needs of women. So Madam Pena should be very comfortable with our approach. Of course, something has been mentioned about scholarships. Through affirmative action of government, it is still ongoing, and also employment. Major institutions today, we prioritize and encourage women who have the qualification to be given first priority. Starting with the National Council of Sports, today we have over 15 women in the administration. But this was not the case before. And we think going forward, we need to look forward to more women involvement in leadership roles and also employment service of government. The second key stakeholder is parents. Like we have said before in many forums, charity begins at home. Parents should be able to encourage their children, especially girl child, to participate in sports. Of course, this comes at the backdrop of those socio-cultural challenges I mentioned earlier. That their parents, their families, their communities who don't believe that women can actually do a thing in sport. And that dictation comes right from family. If your parents doesn't wish any of the kids to go to school, I think we shall not be able to bring in the many number to participate in our sport. But this is contrary to what is in Europe. Recently, I was in UK with the netball team for a Vitality Series in England. I was in a gym, Liverpool University. I could see hundreds of parents come with their young kids to participate, to train them for a 1-hour session. Both mother and father come with the child. And I'm yet to see that in Uganda here, where parents escort their children at a tender age to motivate them to participate in particular sport. So we're saying it starts from home, and this is a challenge to all the parents. Of course, I also want to say that we must play a role to push this through all the structures that our children go through in government. The other one is schools set up. Our schools promote a non-discriminative approach in development. The pathways for participation of women are the same like men do or boys do. And this is the same also participation for our women in coaching, officiation, and in administration. Although this is still minimal, but I think we must build this capacity through our structures in schools. I would want, therefore, to encourage, and I want to encourage all of us, to encourage our women to participate in the leadership roles in sports at school level. Because it is very difficult to think of participating in sport when you're already of age, when you're already 20 years, 30 years. Sometimes it becomes a very big challenge. But using this, I think we shall build a very strong foundation. The other one, of course, a strong school environment that promotes quality experiences for women to participate. I know the challenge here may take me back to issue of infrastructures. The infrastructures we have may not be that good, but we're looking forward that this platform is addressed. The other issue, stakeholder, is the communities. We can believe that many communities still have a challenge to allowing our ladies or girl child participating in the sport. So we need to sensitize our public. The guest of honor made a statement that sport is now the most paying job. And this is a fact. Winning a medal at the world scene can solve the whole problem of a whole clan. At a go. Getting a footballer featuring for Arsenal, okay, Manchester United for me. I would solve all the problems of my clan and my family. So the community attitude in this case must be addressed, that they would be able to encourage the children and the mass of our women participating in various sports. That give them a leverage to compete equally with the men. Of course, the other, number 4, is through the national sports associations, which I've already mentioned earlier. National sports associations do the work of managing and running the administration of all the sports. As the regulators of government, we own a fund, and we have been funding, and we shall continue to fund national associations. But what could be mentioned here, perhaps, is to encourage national associations to put structures and plans and strategies that address the issues of women today, and also advocating for their participation as an additional value. Women need to be encouraged. I don't know which fora we have had where we encourage our athletes to participate in various sports. Because we know by very nature, women are not at the same level with men. Although, I would say, no, we are at the same level. A woman would need to be encouraged. And this is something which we need to build on, even at the level of National Sports Association. I've seen national team participation. You need to sit with them in a corner and have a pep talk if you want a good performance. Because just a small thing like this, the level of emotion and many other things, I know the weakness is there, is known. The other very big stakeholder is the corporate world. I would call them sponsors. They create supportive climate for our participation, for women participation. Equipment, and also encouraging and organizing women tournaments. Endorsing products that promote the ambitions of women. I think that is a very, very important area. And of course, creating partnership with the global women's rights movements to broaden the advocacy. Because today we're talking about women's participation in sport. We're not restricting ourselves to a case of Uganda or the country. We're looking at the whole world. We're looking at the whole of Africa. Because it's a challenge for all of us. So when we address it, we should not address it with exception. We should address it with a broad-based approach. Last but not least, the media plays a very big role. I do not want to underestimate the power of the media in this context. Coverage about women participation motivates and inspires many. But any negative media coverage will put a big dent. That may be very difficult. And I am very aware that in most cases our local media specialize in foreign sports reporting. You find a full page is about certain Arsenal player, and our local player who is a star here may get just a quarter of a page in terms of reporting. We are really getting little mileage from you. But I think when we encourage one, we're encouraging a million. And I want to believe that you play and you continue to really give massive support. Once this is done, all together we are saying, yes, we shall be able to wholesale achieve our end. And in conclusion on the same, I want to say that sports emerges as an important component for socio-economic development of our country, and active and meaningful participation of women improve not only our structure in the community, but also community health. By very nature, sports has its value in health and productivity, and reduces medical expenses. It imbibes discipline and character and enhances social cohesion. There are many attributes I can mention. So I would say that the impact is really real to our communities and is multidimensional and should provide equal opportunities for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Patrick Ogwell. Before I go to the next panelist, I would like us to recognize the presence of the President of the Uganda Netball Federation, Susan Anake. The reason I would like for us to recognize her is because the She-Cranes have done Uganda very proud, qualified for the Netball World Cup 2 times in a row, and a Ugandan, Peace Proskovia, is the brand ambassador of the Netball World Cup. And yes, and yes, and African champions. But also we have participants that came all the way from Kabale. Please send us a shout out. Thank you for coming. My next question goes to Miss Nomza Mahlangu. Like I said, she's Director of Sports at the University of Johannesburg, a very, very good friend, but a woman of integrity. I look up to her. I know you don't know this. But this question goes to you. Are women afraid of power?
No. Okay, but before I really address the question directed to me, Doc, sitting next to me, you provoked so many emotions. And there was a point where, no, it's okay. There was a point where I really wanted to grab you and say, it's not true. But I think on Wednesday, I had the privilege of attending the Athletics Awards. And Doc, you sit next to me and you say, the playing ground is level, it's equal. It's not. Let me tell you my experience in that function. It was the awards for the athletics in Uganda. Then the Sportswoman of the Year, the Athlete of the Year was announced. Then after that was announced for women, the MC says, now for the big one. I look at Penina. And the big one is the men's award. My God. And we still believe we are equal. We have to be realistic about our situations. We have to be realistic about the places that we find ourselves. Women are not afraid of power, but society are afraid of women with power. Now, what do I mean about that? I mean, if you are female like myself, and you are able to stand your ground, you tend to be labeled a number of things. Yesterday, I got to know that people perceive me as arrogant. For me, it's really empowering to know what other people think about me. But arrogance for them is being able to say things the way you want them and the way you believe they must be. I'm a frank person. I say it like it is. I don't sugarcoat because I don't like sugar anyway. So, yes, I have enough. So, I think for us as women who find ourselves in positions of power, we have a responsibility. And that responsibility is to ensure that we bring other women on board. Today, the young woman that was introduced as the first chairperson, we need to move away from the notion of enjoying being the first and the only one, because it is killing us. Now, as you look at statistics from Africa, from Europe, from Asia, everywhere in the world, women are more in terms of population. But I would speak confidently about South Africa. In South Africa, we are more than 52% of the population. But guess what? How many of us as women are in leadership positions? Very few. I can say probably 10%. And the reason for that, there's something that you said that I agree with you on partially. What you said is that as women, we become victims of our own. True. And the victims of our own in this sense. I'll briefly tell you my story in a minute. In 2009, I was the first woman in South Africa to be directly elected in the South African Football Association. In 2013, I made it my responsibility to ensure that I get other women on board. 3 of us were directly elected. The irony happened last year. I didn't get re-elected. Guess what? Who was behind my failure? The same women I got on, but it's fine. Now, the message I'm trying to send across to women is that you have to be your sister's keeper. As a principle in my life, I will never contest another woman for a position. Instead, I will step back and allow the other woman to lead, because it is my belief that at times as women, we tend to contest each other, and in the process, we both lose. So for me, as a principal, when I'm supposed to contest with a woman, I'll sit down and have a conversation with her. And if she believes that she's better than me, I'll step back gladly for you. Now, to all of you young women in this room, because myself and Penina, I know I've just turned 45, and she's somewhere in that range also. We are on our way out. So to you young women, you owe it to each other to ensure that, 1, when you get power, you use it correctly. 2, when you are in a position of power, you need to empower others and lift them up. Because you see, I've lost so many elections, it's not even funny. And I continue contesting. Well, I've always lost to men, and at some point you lose with one vote and you get to find out that the person that actually casted the vote is the first person that promised to vote for you. But it's called life. Now, you have a responsibility to ensure that as we are 52% now in South Africa of the population, how do we then make it to 50-50 in leadership positions? I follow African politics. I think in Africa, the only parliament that has equal representation is Rwanda. Now you ask yourself, when we are more in number, how do we lose? You can answer for yourself. I don't know the answer, but Asha, going back to your question, women are not afraid of power. Society is afraid of powerful women. And society needs to move away from the notion that women are not strong enough. I'm not too sure if you can bear a child, because really, women are the strongest. And where I come from in South Africa, a lot of men move away from the villages to go and work in the city. Guess who is taking care of the kids? Women. And at times the fathers, they get to Joburg, they meet the corporate women that you spoke about. They forget about the women they left at home. And the women have to fend for themselves. In South Africa, there's a popular song, I really like that song. It says, "Buyele ekhaya tata." It means, Daddy, please go back home, because Daddy left and we were left with Mommy, but Mommy took us through school without Daddy's contribution. So, in brief, we are not afraid of power. Society is afraid of women with power. Now, how do we ensure that we give society comfort for them to understand that when we have this power as women, our responsibility is to build the same nation? It means we must not only nurture and mentor the girl child, we must mentor and nurture both boys and girls. Because you see, the mistake we make as societies and communities is that we have accelerated so much the development of the girl child and we forgot about the boy child. Now, in forgetting the boy child, they look at us and they say, hey, here comes the monster. We are not monsters. We need to coexist. I'll stop there.
What an inspirational speech you've just given us, Nomza. Now, allow me to head to the athlete on the panel. When I was starting out my sports journalism career, I attempted to play rugby. Please don't laugh. I attempted, and Winnie was one of the people that held my hand. The reason I wanted to play rugby was so that I can understand the game of rugby, just to play and know some other things. But clearly, I fell off the radar. But I'm coming back soon since they want to qualify for the World Cup. Now, to Winnie, how critical is the role of a female athlete, in the leadership of sports in the country? How important is it for a female athlete in the leadership of sports in this country? What is the role?
First of all, I would like to thank every female that is in this room today. Thanks for leaving whatever you're supposed to do today to come for this conference. That's a very beautiful question. It is extremely important because women are passionate. When I'm speaking as Winnie Atiang, and when I love something, I will even cry for it. I will even box someone for it. I will kill someone for what I love. And I think if you love what you love doing, you specialize and do what you love doing with all your life. I think we need women as leaders in every aspect of sports or in every office, because we are mothers, and with that gene and that DNA in us, everything we are going to touch or everything a female touches, they leave it sparkling. We'll take it to the next level as female. So if you up there as a leader or you are leading fellow women, I'll urge, and I'll say this with a lot of love and passion, let's not fight each other. Regardless of our differences, let's hold our hands together and put our differences aside and chase for the same goal. I am going to advise you ladies in here today that do not make friends with those who are not chasing for the same goal with you. You will waste your time. Only make friends with those women that are chasing for the same goal with you. Regardless of your tribe, regardless of your race, regardless of where you come from. I come from the north, and women from the north are very aggressive. We are aggressive at everything that we do because we love to win. I love winning, and when I lose, I feel so bad about it. But this is an encouragement from my grandmother. She says, be upfront with people. Tell them what you expect of them. Do not expect them to know what you expect of them. Be upfront with them. Tell them, I am making you my friend for reason A, B, C, D, and I hope we're on the same board. Because if you make friends with those that look beautiful, with those that look the way you appreciate them, and they do not add value to whatever goal you're chasing at, my dear sister, do not waste time with any friend who is not chasing for the same thing you're chasing for. When we put women as leaders, I believe and think that as women, they will always leave whatever they're doing aside. They will not delegate anybody. They will want to do it themselves. Because we are passionate people. I'll tell you my story. At 17 years old, I became a mother of twins. Imagine I'm a child at 17 and I have 2 heads to take care of. And they're my firstborns at 17. When I say it with a lot of emotion. The society came against me, and my fellow friends who are going to school at that age would mock me and would say funny words behind my back. But I will tell you this as a woman. Move forward. In rugby, there's what we call pressing. We press forward. And as a Thunderbird, we use the word attitude. Your attitude will make you what you want to be. Whatever you say behind my back is your opinion. It's none of my business. That is what you think of me, but I think of myself as a winner, and you pick yourself up and you press forward. I picked myself up and I went back to school. I dropped off at senior 2. Imagine, I stayed home for another 2 years. That means my classmates were sitting senior 4, and I was going back to school and I was starting at senior 1. It is so annoying and embarrassing to be in senior 1 with, you're a mother already, and you're sitting in class with children who have just left primary school, and they're looking at you like, are you in the wrong place or in the wrong class? Or but I'm here today, happy to be a graduate and happy to be a rugby player. I didn't drop off and put my head down. I got myself up and looked forward and put my head up, and I achieved what I want to achieve, and I'm still looking forward to getting what I want to get. Like Dr. Sally said, when we drop off school, when women start to bear children, they drop off. I bore my children, and people's negativity was my encouragement. They motivated me because I always love to win. Be motivated by someone's negativity against you. Do not put your head down because Winnie said, I can't do this, or Winnie said, I can't do that. Make Winnie's word your motivation. Motivate yourselves as women. We always sit we always sit back and we want to fight against each other. I would like to borrow from her. When you're both standing for the same position as women, can you please put your differences aside and sit down and agree amicably that if you are better than me in this aspect, please go forward. I'll support you 100%. Let's campaign for each other as women, but we always decampaign each other. I do not understand why. It's not nice. It's not funny to campaign a fellow woman, because you do not know where this life takes you. Tomorrow, I might be at a position where I can help your child. I might not help you, but maybe my child will meet your child somewhere and they'll help you. Imagine if my child met your child and you were fighting against me. Remember, when you go home, we are always swearing against, oh, this Susan has been doing this to me. And remember, our children, listen, they follow up. And imagine Susan's child meets with Winnie's child and have been fighting against Susan. And you know, our children always carry our pain with them. And they keep it at the back of their mind, and they will want to revenge for their mothers. So let's not be negative with each other. And if someone hurts you, please do not say it behind their back. I pray and hope that you go in front of them and tell them, you did A, B, C, D, E, F, G to me, and I didn't appreciate it. Please fix the way you do things. And only women who are expensive will do that. Cheap women do that. And I believe that each and every one of us in this store, and I believe that each and every one of us here in this room today are expensive women. Let's not live a cheap life. Go up front and please, when you're corrected and told your fault, be expensive as well and say, oh, I apologize, I didn't recognize that, or I didn't realize that. Because sometimes we hurt each other even not knowing that you're hurting somebody else. So yes, women are very, very important to lead at any post, at any level, anywhere, in any ministry.
And honestly, you're very elegant, you're very beautiful, you can be corporate. No, because the presentation spoke about, I'm sorry, Chairperson, about women who doing sport. She's actually doing rugby, right? And she looks the way she looks, but she presents herself as an athlete who can also talk for herself. And she's challenging all you young women here that be the girl that you should be and respect the next one. Don't have this pull her down syndrome, which is also causing problems for us. So she can be presented like this, and then later on you'll see her in shorts running onto the field. But the very same person. After that, she goes to look after her babies. That's why women are very important in our lives. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Winnie Atiang. By the way, she has a foundation that tries to help girls that have left school because they're pregnant. She tries to help them to get back into school. So if you can help her in any way, please do. And she's using rugby to do that. My next question goes to Dr. Malumbete. How are we engaging the young people alongside the global frameworks like Agenda 2063 of the African Union, SDGs, and the IW Big Five?
Look, I think the important areas of the development of women in total, because firstly we must understand that the role of a woman in society, there has been older certain beliefs that people have had. And today's world is where when you arrive, you need to feel that you have arrived as that particular individual. There is no lesser person amongst us all here. We obviously, some of us have traveled to come here because we value issues related to women and sport. Therefore, the programs and the things that the different organizations that we belong to are engaged in, it's to, I think the more we can have workshops and conferences of this nature, how many people would have known that a professional athlete like her can express the emotive aspect of her life the way she did today? If we did not put up, if Makerere University did not put up, as a follow-up of the IWG conference in Botswana, put up this type of an event. And from our perspective as an organization, as FASU, I said earlier that we have moved into an arena where we say that nothing about us without us. Therefore, women in every sphere of life, those statistics that are presented today, I'm quite sure they will change. I'll give you a small example. Firstly, when we started in our country, more especially with university sport, we said that this is university sport, therefore it's for students. Therefore, we legislated that the president must be a student. I think that's how I became a president then. But what has happened now? And we always spoke that there must be a minimum of 3 students in the executive and a minimum of 3 administrators. But I'll tell you that in today's, we no longer even talk about those things because it becomes natural that our executive is dominated by young women, by young students, and they are more than the administrators. Simply because when you have legislated something, eventually it becomes a natural phenomenon. The ruling party in our country started at 33%, you know, when they send people to parliament, they say there must be 33% women represented. I mean, today in our country, yes, the statistics are not as where we want it to be, but within the ruling party, you find that there is now 50-50% representation of men and women. And what we want is that it should be men of substance, it should be women of substance, because society is yearning for better role models. So to all other programs, even the SDGs that that we have to deal with, when it comes to humanities, when it comes to sport, it will be a situation whereby we people that are here, we start talking more and more towards the empowerment of women and the actual representation of women, not as tokens, but as the women that she was referring to earlier, that when women have got power, society usually is afraid of them. But we can change that whether it's a woman or a man that is in power, when you service your people, then there will not be any fear that is expressed. So FISU and FASU has got programs through which we are trying to train young men and women, because we must also not forget the young men, so they can appreciate better the situation of women. But we must emphasize that when we affirm women, you have affirmed a nation. And this is the thing that we must take with us, that more programs towards allowing women to lead will bear much more fruit, because naturally they are more caring, they are more passionate, they are more loving and beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Malumbete. Ladies and gentlemen, we are live on YouTube to the world. There's people watching from the US, from across Africa. You can send this link here to your friends and family to follow this conversation. Now, my next question goes to the amazing Penina Kawenge, one of my mentors. Is there a blueprint for safe space in sports in Uganda? If so, and if not, what are the key stakeholders doing about it? But before you answer, as a sports journalist, I cover all sports, but I have a bias towards basketball and football, okay? Sometimes I have to go and look for a player in a dressing room, okay? But I'm female. So how do I find this player in a dressing room if I'm a female sports journalist? Another example. Our facilities in Uganda are not that, they're not international, I should say. So you have an open pitch with goalposts, for example, for football or for netball, but you don't have dressing rooms. Okay, so where am I supposed to change? All right, as female athletes, as people that are in women and sport, we all know that sometimes there's harassment Just the other day, you heard about the issue that happened in athletics, that a coach was using female players and threatening them that if they do not sleep with him, they will not be on the team. And actually, this athlete was infected, I should say, with HIV and AIDS. So do we have safe space in sports in Uganda from that perspective? Over to you, Penny Nakabenge.
Thank you very much. You've more or less answered the question. Maybe before I add on what you said, I need to define what is safe space. Safe space is a place intended to be free of bias, conflict, criticism, or potentially threatening action. That's the safe space we're talking about. Safe space is varied, very wide. I remember as a basketball player, we used to compete for space. I used to play for Ladybugs, Sparks, and we used to have one court used with other male teams. We used to fight with power, saddling power then, for that space. We were not safe. There was no safe space for us. But as people who wanted to find a solution to our challenge, we said this court we use belonged to YMCA, and there are rules and regulations for using it. We went and registered, became members of YMCA, so we were more entitled to the facility than our counterparts, and it was a big fight. As she said, as she asked, is there a blueprint? I think it's not there as such, because there are no, a blueprint, I would compare it to a plan of a house, where you know that this is where I want the kitchen to be, this is where I want the bathroom to be, and this is how I want my bedroom to be. I don't think at the moment it is, and it's a challenge to all of us here today, all stakeholders, to have a blueprint, to have safe space for our athletes, whether male or female. We need to, there's been a lot of sexual harassment, and I don't think we've addressed it as stakeholders. It could be a criminal case, but I think we need policy in place. As a seasoned leader, I've been approached by athletes, girls who come to me and say, the coach says I cannot be fielded until I sleep with him. And there is no safe space if such a thing is happening. Some of them, some of the administrators come and tell the girls, if you don't sleep with me, you cannot be on the team that is traveling outside Uganda, which is terrible. And it could still happen to the boy child, like I'm the administrator. So we need that blueprint in place, and I'm appealing to National Council of Sports to have something, a policy that gives safe space to our athletes. When it comes, she talked about the changing rooms. We practice in those open space. We change outside. Those of us who have the cars, you go and change in your car, but everybody's looking at you, removing your clothes, putting on the sportswear. I think we need a blueprint that protects our athletes, whether male or female. And some of the federations, I think they need to come out and style up. As we are preparing for this conference, we discussed a number of things and people were giving their own experience. I'm told, like with FUFA, the Football Federation of Uganda, the men, when they are camping, they camp in a 5-star, and the women in some hostel, not worth for the athletes to participate. I raised that at a recent forum where we were invited with FUFA, and they had some excuse for that. I think it should be a leveled ground for everybody, because we can also as women, represent the country well and make our countries proud. So we need to be given equal opportunity. I think it's about equal opportunities for each and everyone so that we can all achieve. Give us the opportunity. I think I rest my case.
Thank you very much, Penina. I'm just going to say a few things there. Uganda are the current African cricket champions, and we actually have the captain here. Naomi, please wave. And Uganda finished second, and we're second in Africa, Winnie, right? Yes, as of last year. We are also, like I said earlier, African netball champions. And then we also have the world #3 woodball player in the house, Lilian Zawede, #1 in Africa. Wave for us. So yes, women can really succeed if they're given an opportunity. Now, okay, we're just going to have some questions since we are time barred. We're going to have the other discussions in the breakaway sessions. So I'm just going to allow 2 questions from the floor. From a man, since they are an endangered species here, and then a woman. So the man first. There's a microphone going around. There's a gentleman here. Please tell us your name, where you're from, and your question, and to who.
Yes, my name is Ochen Willie from Moon University, the acting sports tutor there. In Muni, I'm also in the estates. I'm an engineer, civil engineer by profession. And mine will not be a question as such. It will be a compliment, and also to ask us to move away from certain sentiments that do not grow us, sentiments that bring division. I want to react to the 2 ladies at the extreme ends. You all spoke with passion. You quickly corrected yourself in the end, but I think for Winnie, it's more of the experience that she went through. This is what I have to say. Yesterday when I was coming with my girls, I engaged them a lot, as if I was involved in formulating some of the questions that are being asked here, because these are some of the questions I was actually asking them. Yes, you might perceive that the society are afraid of women with power. It is the emotions, the sentiments that the woman brings, that brings the insecurity. And I want us, as young women and all women here who are mentoring young women, to move away from that sentiment of, you see, we can be equal, we can be what? For me, I have never believed that a woman and a man are equal. Believe it or not. For very many reasons. Let me explain this. A woman is a very special creature. Why? Even if you pick the strongest man in this room, came through a woman. And how can you be equal to that, to the man that you produce? Women, if you put a woman in some position of responsibility, the passion with which they pursue these responsibilities, you will see success. And it's not easy to equate such passion to a man. Men are just masculine. they are just raised to believe. They're like lions in the park. You know a lion, if an elephant comes in the room here, the lion will not run away. Do you know what the lion sees in an elephant? Lunch.
Thank you very much.
Come.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
So I want us to move to action. Let us stop these talks of equality, what. Just bring in the talent in you and bring it to the world. That is what we want. If it is in leadership, come and lead, and we will encourage you. Some of us take women to be very special, and I believe they can do very special things. And that is why I am here. I want to support you.
All right, thank you very much from our friend from Mooney University. I have a question at the back. Florence, a question, please. And you tell us to who you're asking the question.
Thank you. My question goes, Florence Nakamia is my name. I come from Deja University. I'm also from AUS, Association of Uganda University Sport. My question goes to Dr. Ogwell. How you said you have 15 positions for women in administration. And when you hear everyone's position, we feel as women we can articulate our issues better. Probably when you put one or two people in position. Dr. Malombete said in South Africa it's no longer an issue. It's obvious that they have to put female leaders on the executive. Are those 15 positions highly representative, or those are just administrators in offices and they cannot make any decision at all? Truthfully, I really think NCS, how many women are in positions of policy making in the Ministry of Education and Sport? Okay, despite the minister herself, how many other women can stand up and say, we will not vote to that policy, we will vote to this policy? That is my question. Please, how many positions of those 15 are representative of policy and articulation of what the woman wants in a society as this? Thank you.
I don't know whether I'm allowed to respond.
Yes, Dr. Ogwell, please.
Thank you. My good friend Florence, thank you. I want to first start by saying that my perspective of discussion was on the opportunities that National Council of Sports as a regulator has provided within the platform of accessing jobs at National Council of Sports. You talk more passionately about the women in the position of policy making. I think two things should emerge here. One, involvement of women in the administration of sport. That is key. Two, decision making at the level of top management. I want to start by saying that the issue of National Council of Sports starts from 1964. And a lot of changes and rebranding as today it happened, and it's a process which is still ongoing. But what I wanted to bring on board is that from time memorial, we could have maybe 2 or 3 women only at the level of involving in administration as employees. But at the level of top management, now we have 2 influential women with us, even in the house. The lady who is in charge of compliance, actually a lawyer, our council and in charge of compliance, where all federations' activities are handled, is right in the house here. Shadia Nakamanya, you can stand up for recognition.
Shadia, who actually happens to be my OG from Chiwuni.
In an attempt to empower, we have been facilitating our women in the organization for many women courses. Recently, Shadia has just come back from an African Union Women's Sports Conference in Cameroon. That was November last year. We have involved them in management as a process of capacity building. Where you know Uganda participates in Commonwealth Games, Africa Games, Olympic Games. These are the administrators we have. And we think through them they will inspire and build capacity for others to join in. This has not happened in the past. And Madam Panen is here, will tell you, even people who are supposed to be doing physiotherapy are men in the past. But you have made it a policy that most of the issues of women, including coaches, who should be seconded whenever national teams are participating in national games, should be women. Now, that means we must first build that capacity together. And why I was mentioning that passionately was that we are building the capacity to involve women in activities of sports management as a regulator of government. It may not be a very a big issue to look at specifically the level of decision making. Because in top management, how many people sit in top management in your institution? You find the number is very minimal. But at least have those two ladies. The second is Dovik. Dovik is our information officer. She has been with you in many forums and can speak for all the women in National Council of Sports. And these are very powerful women I have around. And that's why they're in the house. So going forward, I think involvement is an ongoing activity. We have encouraged national sports associations on one end as a regulator to involve women in sport. Some federations have taken affirmative action. For example, in football, there is affirmative action where particular quota on the number of executive members slot in the executive board should be a woman. And we are taking this through to all national sports associations, that in the composition of the sports association, there must be particular slots for women in those top positions. And that is the approach government wanted. But I think it is about you. How many of you would want to come on board? Recently, I cite an example. I've been in basketball, yes. We created a platform where there's a permanent representation. But there are women who don't even want to apply to be, or don't want to show up. What my brother there is talking about, you must come forward and be identified to be part of the women's struggle. But sitting and wishing and complaining will not make you a real woman. So participation here is very, very important. So we must show up. I would think tomorrow, as my sister here said, they are hedging out with the Penina. Now, who else is coming to replace Penina? But look at where Penina has come from. I work with her in many fronts. But look at the capacity built, not only as an athlete, a national athlete, a sports administrator, to the principal, but at global level. The moderator did not mention that she sits in the world body, FISO. She's at the level of Africa in many contexts. She has been in the Uganda Olympic Committee. She has been also a board member in my council. She has touched very many areas. But to reach that level, we can only say how many Peninas are there in Uganda. This is the starting point. So let's build it from there and use that institutional approach and encourage you to participate. That's when we shall have equal opportunities, as my brother said. So this should be just an eye opener. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Patrick Oguel. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank our panelists for all your contributions. We've been cut short because of time. Yes. Dr. Salih.
Thank you very much. It was a very wonderful panel, but I think we also need to go out thinking about one thing. It is, as you say, it's good for women to collaborate on competition as a matter of strategy. But human beings normally compete. Men compete against each other. Women compete against each other. It is not unnatural. But as a matter of strategy of oppressed people, we normally collaborate and you step down for the best. So because if we don't have this right, we shall end up having very high expectations of women and ideal and unrealistic expectations of women, which have made women look like failures. The other thing, well, thank you very much. Women are stronger than men, but can we see this in terms of opportunities in real life? So that it is not just a mantra we speak about, you know, women cannot be equal to men because they are superior. But when you come to opportunities in real life, women are treated as if they are subordinate to men. So let us actualize that mantra in real life. And finally, it is good that when we are talking about gender empowerment and all those things, we also consider the boys. But you do not have to validate a struggle for women by bringing men on board. It is good practice that if you're talking about why women are oppressed, that men need to appreciate how they oppress women. But you can also pursue a good goal for women without necessarily having to appeal to men, okay? And I'm saying this because it has reached a level whereby you are not seen to be very proper speaking about women unless you bring men on board. The truth of the matter is women have been oppressed, marginalized, discriminated for a long time. We are not even anywhere about getting a quota away. So it is very valid, it is very proper, it is very legitimate to champion the women's cause. No one should make us feel very embarrassed about it. You saw the statistics, they are not right. So women come up, press on. If men are going to come on board, they are very welcome. If they are not coming on board, it is also no harm pursuing women and promoting women wherever they are. Nothing to feel embarrassed about. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sali. It's an honor to be in front of very powerful men and women. Thank you very much to all our panelists. I'll be giving out big hugs as you leave the stage to go to your seats. Thank you very much. So I'll just hand over to co-MC, Rosette Mayer, who's going to brief us on what is coming up next.
Thank you so much. Those seats seem to be so comfortable, eh? Kindly, as you pass by, pick something as you go there. Thank you so much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, once again, we want to say thank you. You've sat for a long time, isn't it? Okay. Anyway, we are going to go for our tea break. But before we can go, kindly allow me to do one thing, such that it's going to have continuity. First, if we look at our program, we are going to go into breakout session, right? But we wanted to make sure that we organize it here such that when you go for your tea break, you pick your cup of tea and you go to your group so that it's a working tea. How does that sound? So that we can redeem time. Now, to help me out, I was thinking we need just to count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Is that okay? So that you know exactly where you'll be falling. Is that fine? Thank you so much. I'm starting here. Let's do it quickly. Can I repeat? Some of you were talking, eh? We are going to count 1, 2, 3. And whichever number you have, I'll let you know which group you will be going to. Okay? Please. Can you shout so hard so that you know we are empowered? 1, 2, 3. Becky, you're 3. Sweetheart.